Anything? Ah, that's better. I can see that audio is going in. Can I see the audio coming out? Ah, brilliant. Okay, finally it caught up and I could actually hear that you can hear something. So audio should be there now. Audio coming. Sorry about that. I've had a mess of setup. I need to actually just switch some stuff around because my iPad decided that it was going to be dead today, and that means I can't do some of the remote control things that I normally do. Because it's also destroyed the connection to OBS, but whatever, and I can't find the password. I'll figure that out another time. Anyway, how are you? How was your week? Have you had a good one? It will be good to hear from you. Thanks for coming along and watching. I appreciate it. Yeah, it'd be nice to get a little bit of conversation going rather than just me talking. Ooh, that's a good question, Ryan. I will try and reduce the crazy movement. Why is it going so crazy? Maybe if I take that off, it will stop moving. And then you'll just have to put up with my head moving or being in the wrong place. Maybe I can sort that out as well. No, that's going to be precarious. Okay, I'm not going to mess too much with the setup live, because that is not going to be fun for anybody. Yeah, tell me guys, how are you? What's going on? What's the fun stuff that you've been doing this week? I'd love to know more. That's interesting. I might switch it back on the, what's it called? Center stage is what's happening when I go into my spacesuit. Yeah, anyway. Smooth week, good. I like to hear that. Well done, Richard. Keep it up. Anyone else? What have you been working on? Has it been fun stuff? Has it been boring stuff? You've been able to do some side projects? Let me know. Whilst you're thinking about that and the whole stream is catching up and I'm obviously a few seconds ahead, I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the things that's been kind of interesting to me over the last, it's been a few weeks since I streamed, so I tweeted about this the other day, so if anybody saw that, I know a few of you have engaged on it, but this whole situation with Python and maybe me seemingly wanting to switch technologies away from Laravel and PHP, just to be clear, that is not what I'm doing. I'm not going to switch away. I'm just interested in this kind of debate about Python because I've seen quite a few companies lately, and ones that I've been working closely with, actually wanting to switch, and some of the reasoning has been, you know, Python is everywhere. Everybody's using it. It's used for AI and machine learning, which seems to be, you know, the thing of the day, and etc., etc., etc. So like, it's super popular, and maybe we should be using it for everything, front end, back end, whatever, all of the different systems that we might want to be building. And yeah, I think that's an okay piece of logic. I don't think it's right, but there you go. And yeah, there are a lot of things that I don't know about Python, so I'm just kind of keen to learn a little bit more. But yeah, so that it's been interesting to go through some of that exercise of kind of, I'll say, replatforming and thinking about what the differences are going to be, what the challenges are going to be. I kind of my perception of other ecosystems at the moment, given how popular the likes of Laravel is or are, is that they don't have the kind of tooling readily available to build like performant, scalable applications as part of a team. Web applications specifically, perhaps, but yeah, just I can't see. I think there's a flurry of activity at the beginning where you can use something like Fast API or Django because you're familiar with it and get something set up quite quickly that works. But then what beyond that? Like Python performance is still a bit rubbish as far as I understand it. And most of the people who write Python aren't software engineers, frankly. So you're going to have really pretty terrible code appearing, or somebody's going to have the really horrible job of trying to maintain coding standards with a team of people who don't really know what they're doing. Those are my thoughts on it anyway. I'll wait for some of your thoughts in the chat. And in the meantime, I'll go back to what we were talking about before this whole slow thing caught up. So this week was smooth. Oh, we said that. That was good. Ryan, good week, very productive, day job wise. Have been cracking away at some Rust stuff on the side. Love to see it, Ryan. I want more of that Rust stuff, and we need to talk. Like, I keep saying it, but I mean it. One of these days, we have to do a stream where somebody comes on, and I want it to be you first, because we need to talk about a lot of Rust stuff. Normal, boring clients work, Richard. I'm sorry. I mean, hopefully none of them are watching this, and I'm sure they wouldn't mind you saying it either. But yeah, good. Well, at least it's ticking over. At least you've got clients. Not everybody has that, so be thankful. Ryan, Python is a questionable language. That's all I'll say. I feel like we agree on so many things, Ryan. This is why we need to talk. Mate, I'm going to make a list of all of the things that we need to talk about, and then we should figure out how to do a show together if you want that, because I would love to do that. In fact, that leads me to one of the other things that I was sort of thinking about doing. I did a poll about what I should do on stream, and I think about 3 or 4 people gave a vote towards continuing with my project that we'll pick up in a minute. But I thought it would be cool to interview Laravel engineers. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how comfortable everybody is with that, but there are a lot of us. And I think, we see in a lot of shows, podcasts, streams maybe, but like interviews done with other engineers who are popular. I'm not going to classify it really, that's not fair. But you tend to see the same people over and over again, and I think it would be nice to see some different faces. I'm not familiar with all of the shows that are on, and I can't speak for the truth of that broadly, universally, because I don't know. I don't watch everything. I haven't got time. But from my point of view, I think it would be nice for me to speak to more Laravel engineers. And I think if they were comfortable doing that live on a show that we were streaming out, that could be kind of interesting. But yeah, let's see. I'm putting it out there. I'm going to try a little bit harder to get some people involved and see if we can turn it into a thing, because I'd love a little segment where I bring somebody on, we chat about what they want to talk about, and then maybe do something together, or they can go off and do what they need to go and do, and that would be interesting. Don't know, let me know what you think. What else have people been saying? Richard, they know they are boring. Yes, let's find time and place amongst the madness that is life. I don't know. I think we just have to know. I'm going to try and do this every Friday. I said I was going to try and do it every Friday, and I'd skip 2 Fridays after doing 2 Fridays. So if you're free on a Friday at this sort of time, let's make it work. If you want to do it as a recorded thing, we can do it as a recorded thing, and I can just play the recording, and then we can do it whenever works for you, because I'm free and easy, generally speaking. Yeah, I guess the only other bit, like some of you might have seen that I've started working with a company called Titan. They're very cool, and I just want to give them a shout out. It was nice to meet Matt Stauffer in person at Laracon and have a chat with him, and then we caught up afterwards, and yeah, I've started working with that team, and it's really nice. I'm working with Tony Macias at the moment, and he's a really good dude. He's a really good Laravel engineer, and I'm enjoying. I feel like I'm learning from him, which is great. Yeah, and he's very fast. It's very fast. I feel really slow. You know, like, talk about a 10x engineer. Anyway, if you can hear vacuum noises in the background, that is vacuum noises. Sorry about that. It's just, you know, Friday's cleaning day as well. Bad timing. So I hope that doesn't cause too much distraction. Right. I'm gonna, if there's nothing else at the moment that anybody wants to talk about or wants me to talk about, then I'm gonna move on. So I guess when you write a comment, I'll pick that up in a minute. But I'm gonna get things ready to pick up where we left off on this project. I'm going to give the usual rundown of what it is that we're doing and try and get back into the swing of it for 45 minutes. I think I've got about 45 minutes or so. Maybe we can extend that a bit further. It was this one, I think. No, this is not that one. Sorry, I'm trying to get the repo that I created into the right place. Yeah, here we go. I've got it. Fine. Did I do some silly things in here? That was interesting. I could talk about that for a moment. I'm going to pick this back up. So, like, how do I pick a project back up after 3 weeks of not touching it? Well, the answer to that question is it's not easy. I always find it a little bit of a challenge because my head's not in it. Honestly, I've been doing that with native PHP, and it's really, really tough. Like, the level of complexity that's there makes it even harder to kind of pick all of those things up, which, yeah, is challenging. So I'm gonna raw show you what it is that I'm gonna do to figure that out. Right, so I had to find OBS, and we're gonna go to coding, and we're gonna. How do I do that? Oh yeah, hide the little dude. Right, let's transition, and hopefully my head will be in the right place. Yeah, near enough. I mean, I'm going to switch on my center stage again, but hopefully now it won't be so crazy moving around and like won't be so jarring for you, because mostly it's just in the little bubble on the bottom. Cool. So here, this is where I got to. This is a lot of silliness. We've got Saloon. Yeah, this is crazy. So if you were here for the last one, you might remember that I did a little bit of an exploration of how to use a first-class callable as a root, or route, depending on how you want to say it. Come on, mouse, do the right thing. And yeah, I've reverted this bit actually in the meantime because I think I wanted to test something out, but I've left some of the other code in the shape that it was in. And I did a bit of performance testing on it, and I ended up PRing some of what I did to Laravel, which got shut down, but that's okay because it's also, yeah, super risky and not a great idea. You don't need it, basically. It was just a bit of a fun thing to explore. But, so, anyway, I'm trying to dive into this again. It's been a few weeks, and you can see I'm looking at the Git status basically here in Tower of the project. I can see a whole bunch of stuff that I've done, which was just messing around to try and get that little prototyping of first class callable root controllers working or demoed. So I don't need any of these changes. I want to go back to where I was at, so I'm going to discard all of that. But it does happens to remind me of where I was as well. So luckily for me, these changes are in a place that I want to come back to. So we're going to come back to this payment controller and see what we're going to do there potentially. I'm going to get rid of those changes. You can see I've done this branch, my local version of Laravel, which I don't need that. I don't care. So I'm going to discard these lines. We're going to go back to standard Laravel 10. I don't need this controllers file, which probably has nothing useful in it. I do want these two still. I'm going to need those. Even though I haven't necessarily formally introduced Saloon. No, that won't work. Because it's not tracked. I need to delete this file. I don't care about that file. Fine. So now I'm going to do a ZZZ roots test. I can get rid of that as well at some point. Composer install. Let's just do that and get back to. Oh no, it's not install. That's not going to work. It is update. Okay. Please increase the font size. Yeah, sorry, my screen is very, very small, isn't it? I wonder if it's going to let me do that. I think what I actually need to do, what I should do, is change the resolution on my monitor. I think that's going to be better for everybody. Let's just go here and sort that out. Maybe let's make it tiny. Oh no, that's the wrong screen. 1080? Is that better? Is that better for you, Richard? Hopefully. I'll go back and make it even smaller if we need to. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's really terrible. Okay. So we've got this pay route. I'm going to do a quick summary. Like, we're trying to do this new open banking payment thing. We're trying to take payment and connect that between the customer and a merchant, and the merchant is the one who's going to sign up. They're going to have to sign up for the two services. They're going to have to sign up for the payment gateway, the open banking payment gateway, and they're going to have to sign up for this service. And the principle of that is, like, my service then is a marketplace, and there's a whole bunch of things that we could, like, start to explore and model out and whatever. I don't really know the best place for doing some of that. I think I've been through this exercise before, and I still haven't spent time finding some way to diagram these things out. But maybe I've got something in the wings that I can use quickly. me see if my Miro account's got a free space. Why is nothing logged in when I want it to be automatically logged in? I just, yeah. Working? Okay, well, I can put it here. This is all good. We can start off in this one. What I want to do is maybe sort of think about some of the structure of the application without just diving straight in. I would like to be the person who likes to plan it out first. So that's what I'm going to do this time. So normally I'd probably just go, I'm thinking about like the database structure that I want, and then I'm trying to write migrations, or even just diving straight into a model and trying to work out what the methods of the model and kind of some of the attributes of the model should be, which is crazy. So I know we could do it in like a test-driven way, or we write tests first. Yeah, I don't know. I can't, like, for me, that I always struggle a little bit with it, and I think, you know, I'll just end up going round and round and round. So I'm going to start with like drawing and writing. Let's see. Okay, let's think about database structure. Well, the first thing is I want to get an idea of what I'm going to build. I want to think carefully about exactly what kind of product this makes sense to be. So I feel strongly that there's an opportunity to do really small payment amounts with open banking. So I'm kind of keen to explore that. But there's also maybe the other end of the scale where it's like larger amounts and people managing bigger payments, where if you were doing it by card especially. So yeah, that highlights the problem. On both ends of the scale, payments by card are kind of problematic. When you do a payment by card in the kind of middle tier of payments, let's say from a few pounds or dollars to a few hundred, it's kind of acceptable that the 3%-ish fee that you'll get charged as the merchant can kind of be accepted as part of doing that business at that level. But if you're doing very small payments, you end up with the fee being really high. Like it represents much higher than 3%. You know, if you want to take a payment of 50p or 50 cents, and the initial bit of the fee is 20 cents, that's nearly a 50% fee basically, and that's nuts. That's really crazy, and doesn't make small payments viable. I don't even know if open banking really enables that either, but at least on the face of it, it sounds like it will be much better than 50%. So that's one angle to look at. The other angle is, like I said before, the high amounts. So, you know, like if you think about going into a really high-end jewelry store, or, you know, buying some really expensive equipment, but as a consumer, your options are you either go into the store, talk to a salesperson, pay a deposit with your card, and then come out and they give you an invoice, or, you know, some whatever, and you make a separate payment. And it's like you have to go into your bank, you have to type in bank details, you have to, you know, or the olden days was like writing a check or something like that. So that's fraught with danger of its own. I think the mistakes can be made, and I'm sure mistakes are made. But also those two areas are kind of more consumer focused, and I really want to focus a little bit less on a consumer business. I feel like there's an opportunity to do something that's a bit more business to business, but I don't know how well that works from an open banking perspective, because open banking as an umbrella is more focused on consumers at the moment. So there's a trickiness there to which way to go. So what should it be? So we could explore. I think there are a couple of ideas. One is you could do this sort of like e-commerce, but for high value items. That could be interesting. Then you've got the low end. I think if you did something like, if let's say you're a blogger, or you're a content producer, that's even like you're a content person and you want to take micro payments for a piece of content. So you don't want people to subscribe to your site necessarily, but you want pieces of content that you've created to be available either as a bundle or one-offs. And if it's an article, you don't want to charge like £5 per article, because people won't pay it, But if it was 20 pence, maybe people would. Yeah, I don't know. That could be interesting. And yeah, maybe I should start making some notes here, right? So we've got, let's start with classic yellow note. Low end payments and high end. And then we've got, oh, that's nice, thanks Miro. Then we've got specifics about each one of those. So let's say, feels more consumer focused. Maybe that shouldn't be green, maybe this should be like a not so good colour. How do I do a new note then? Let's do, oh, don't give me choice, I just want a new one. Micro payments, not covered well elsewhere yet. So my thinking with that is, what's it called? Crypto payments, or like the potential answer to this problem, because crypto payments are so cheap. It's just computers communicating. Actually, it's turned out that they're not so cheap, with all of the compute power required to keep everything in check. Actually, small amounts end up still being quite expensive, which is frustrating. So open banking could actually unlock that. Okay. What else? Have we got anything else? Could unlock small one-off payments for content creators. That's interesting, I think. I think a problem with it though, hard to justify. So I do want this to be a product, and I think that part of that, the model is going to be concerned around how that like business makes money itself. So how does the marketplace make money? And I guess the problem with open banking compared to card, and the way that something like Stripe Connect works at the moment, is that because the person in the middle, the organization in the middle of this, the marketplace, isn't, and even the payment gateway provider, they're not handling the funds, right? They're just connecting the two accounts together, the customer with the merchant, and saying, you two should talk to each other. Here's what you've agreed, like £5 is what's going to be spent from the customer to the merchant, and you're going to return, some product or service as a response to that. Fine. So as the marketplace and as the payment gateway, I have no way to kind of siphon a little bit off the top of those funds. I can say I saw that transaction happen, and under our agreement with the merchant, the marketplace, you owe me what we've agreed based on these transactions happening. And then you could say, I'll take a percentage, but you can't take it as it's happening. And the difference with Stripe Connect is that it does. So you plug all of that into Stripe Connect and you actually say, I want to take this amount off, and then you can send the rest to so-and-so. And that's really nice from the marketplace's perspective, because then you've got the funds being collected before they even move along. You can't do that with open banking, so it's always going to be post facto or whatever, and that means that you've effectively got this post dated income, like the transaction's already happened and then you're claiming it back from the merchant, and obviously there's a risk there, like for that business you're not going to get the money necessarily every time. So what I would want to do to mitigate that is, rather than having to charge a percentage of the transaction, or maybe as well as, that's debatable, but rather than doing that, if you just had a flat subscription, so if you just said, my service is $50 a month, then you know that you're getting your $50, and then you're enabling the merchant to take open banking payments. That sounds really cool to me. Like, I think it's competitive for one, which is interesting. And I think the other angle is that it doesn't feel like you're taking advantage of these merchants as much. So, and there's less variability at play. So it's like a simpler product and simpler pricing structure, etc., etc. So the problem with that is, what do you set that price at when you don't know how many payments somebody's going to be able to make? Like, is it even going to be worth it for them? And that's, like, low-end payments are really problematic. So if somebody's got a piece of content that they sell for £1, they've got to sell it 50 times if your subscription cost is, well, they need to sell it more than that. But if it was say £30 a month, then they'd want to more than make that back. So any price that you set on the subscription is going to be hard for them to justify when they've got so many transactions to do. Now, for others, it might be like, that is just obvious. There's loads that they can put through, and it's such a huge cost saving for them and an opportunity that it's a no-brainer, and they prefer that to, or maybe they would even prefer like percentage-based pricing than a fixed amount subscription. But so there's maybe, I think this is kind of interesting for, if it was a content creators thing, maybe for larger media orgs with bigger audiences. Yeah, I don't know what a bigger audience is, but let's say greater than 100k visitors as a simple proxy for now. I'm going to pause on that one. We can go over to high-end payments for a second because I want to explore this one. Right, high-end payments. The problem with high-end payments at the moment with card, those percentage fees are going to really rack up, and that's when you see merchants, they don't want to use card for things that are really expensive. And that, you know, I agree with them. It's really ridiculous and it's disgusting. And that does need to change. And I think it will. I think that's what we're doing here. So we could explore it, but for high end, the problems really come around like the, what is it? It's the platform risk, maybe? Do they see the marketplace as safe? I think they will find it much easier to justify subscription, though, having said that. So, easier to pay subscription. And it's open to all kinds of business. Consumer, well, let's say B2C and B2B, which is kind of appealing. What other problems? Can you think of any problems that they might have? Merchants with high-end payments that they would have using a third-party marketplace that uses open banking. I don't know. I guess another, like an interesting one here is investment. Like angel investors. I don't know, there might be like loads of regulation around that. I don't know. I feel like there's going to be loads of regulation around this in the end anyway. But yeah, have you got any thoughts about what problems or challenges that businesses taking high-end payments might have with open banking? I guess like doing it in person versus online. That, yeah, maybe. So card has been traditionally, like it started off usually with the little till, and then obviously it moved online, and the gateway services and the card issuers wanted to differentiate between an online transaction and one that's happening in person. And so now you end up with this scenario where a merchant, basically, they're not really allowed to use their online gateway interface with in-person customers. Like, I think in some that will break the terms of use and things like that. Like, if you want to take card payments in person, you have to get one of the little card machines, and you have to have the person there, and they have to use chip and pin, or they have to use their touch ID or face ID, you know, like the authenticating the payment. You can't just type it into the website like they would do when they're at home, which is a different kind of context. And they treat it differently from a risk perspective and all these reasons just to make businesses pay more money. So maybe this would change that. Maybe you could do it, maybe because there's nothing around it. Maybe there is something around regulation that says you can't do that. But in theory, because all you're facilitating is just the connection between banks rather than taking a payment through some weird card issuer business, then whatever mechanism you've made available to do it is the one that can be used, and there's no difference in the risk level. So you could have like maybe actually this could be done in person as well. Like this, I mean, and that is what Trilo, I guess, are doing. They've got their QR code thing. Maybe that's less of an issue for this marketplace. Maybe the marketplace doesn't facilitate that at all. Maybe that also highlights that this isn't necessarily about physical product. Maybe it's something else. Okay, well, overall there are also problems. So I just want to make a note of some of these. Doesn't support subscriptions yet. Need. So what is that called? Variable. I think it is like variable payment amounts or some variable payment requests. Open banking variable recurring payments, VRP. Okay, it's not VPR. Variable recurring payments. That's not available yet with the Trilo thing that I've set up. What else? Trilo. Good grief. Okay, well, let's go from there. I don't think I can make hard and fast decisions on this yet, but what we'll see is there's some similarities between these anyway, and that can inform some of our data structure, right? So we know that whatever it is, we're going to be dealing with payments, and we've got some concept of merchants and customers, and we need to capture some of their information. I don't know what yet, but we'll work that out. And then we want to be able to capture detail about the transactions that are happening between them. We might need to capture some detail about the products that they're offering, the merchants are offering, so that it makes sense to the consumer. I mean, maybe even like the point is not to worry too much right now about what the end use case is going to be, because there's some of the basics that are similar between the two, that or between all of the different variations of this thing, that mean that you're just gonna, if you build a sort of basic payment tracking system between entities, then you end up with something that can be applied in multiple ways. So maybe that's the thing we should start to explore. So let's say on the one hand we've got, I'm just going to use simple shapes. In fact, I think I'm on like 25% zoom level, which I didn't even really notice. Crazy. So we're going to go with merchant. We know we've got merchants. Shrink this down a bit more. Oh, thanks, Miro. And then we've got customers, and we've got transactions. And you have potentially products. I'm even going to go, we're going to go full bore e-commerce. I think that's what we're heading towards. So you might have orders, So some of this also, like the data model might not be what people end up seeing, but it's a way of thinking about it, and I'm going to try and break these down a little bit more, which might help make sense. It might not need all of that, but then the other thing that comes off that is usually like order items. So customers will place orders, orders will have order items, which are some relationship to products, and then transaction occurs, always recorded as having occurred between a customer and a merchant for an order. That's like e-commerce sort of 101 level stuff, I think. Yeah. Okay, well, let's flesh it out and see where we get to. I don't know if it really is that exciting in the end. So I'm just going to stick some column ideas down here. And okay, thanks Miro. So you'd have your ID, you'd have, why am I doing it there? I don't care about orders first, I care about customers. So ID, name. Again, I don't know how much of this we actually need. I'm going to be loose with it to start with, but you know, timestamps is fine. Name, email. I don't want to record addresses or any of that stuff. I think all I really care about is the transaction, and maybe that's enough. Wow. Well, yeah, I think I'm just like, in my head is like spinning in different angles because I'm super distracted by the other thoughts of the other side where I should just focus. So, okay, let's just keep it simple, not try and overdo it. Customers will have name and email, obviously their ID. Should they log in? Yeah, let's let them log in. Password. I think all of that's true of a merchant. But maybe I don't want that. I want them to be a team. Customers shouldn't be that. Like maybe the customer isn't really a record. Maybe it's users or something. There's something else coming out there. So I'm going to stick that there for now. And then you've got the merchant is just a record about the business. And we're going to have, we already know from what we did before, they're going to have this Trilo merchant ID. So we'll say, yeah, Trilo merchant ID. And that's the key thing that we need. This one is like top importance. I think. Then I'm gonna move these away because I don't think we need to look at that at the moment. Then there might come this idea of like merchant user accounts. Maybe there's like, maybe merchants are like a team and the team has users, you know, in the, what's it, Jetstream concept. Did we install teams? Yeah, so maybe teams are like merchants, and then merchants can have multiple users associated with them. And that means that kind of is already I mean, we're modeling it, but we don't necessarily need to worry about it because it's already done. So merchants equals teams. Don't know. What do you think? Oh, comments. Sorry, Richard. I'm kind of scanning occasionally, and I think the last time I looked, I hadn't seen your comment. Maybe use UUID instead of ID to prevent guessing. Yeah. So that is an interesting point. Let's talk about that one for a moment. UUID versus ID. I know it's maybe it's not true now because of the different kinds of UUIDs and database improvements and things. But when I first started looking at using UUIDs, there was like real problem if you wanted to use them as the primary key. Like for storage size, retrieval speed, searching, and mainly for sorting. And I know there's like time-based UUIDs and other things, but I've always treated it as like, well, you have your primary key, that's nice, auto-incrementing integer, you haven't got to generate it, the database does it for you, it's super exciting, like I don't have to think about it, and I love things I don't have to think about. And then you have your UUID by the side, and the UUID is what you'd expose publicly, and you can still search on and things, like it'd still be indexed. And it could be, even now, super efficient, but I still probably wouldn't reach for using that as my primary key. I just don't, maybe I'm wrong, maybe that needs to be changed and challenged, and it can be, and maybe it should be, but ID still, like as a simple integer, still feels super portable as a concept. What do I mean by portable? Like, and now I've got to defend the thing that I don't even know what I'm sure I mean. I think no matter where you end up, where this data ends up, a simple single ID like that, you know, in the context of this table, is useful. I think it can be useful. It's definitely much easier to order by, and in lots of different contexts, like if you dump data out to Excel, which you shouldn't do for this kind of stuff, but you know, if you were doing that, yeah. I think there's also, well, no, that's not really fair. I was going to say there's some issue with like UUIDs happening across different tables, databases, servers and things, collisions and whatnot, but that's still very true of normal IDs. I do think that there's a better, well, no, maybe even UUIDs would be better in the context where you've got two database servers, because you might have you want high availability. The traditional way of kind of handling that, if both databases can receive writes, is to separate the ID increments. So maybe the one does evens and the other one does odds, and then when you bring them back together, you've got no collisions. UUID wouldn't have that anyway, generally, unless you ended up in the very unfortunate, like both servers generated the same UUID for different records, but that's supposed to be extremely unlikely. The only downside of UUID is storage size. Yeah, I agree, and it's not much, really. In the grand scheme of things, it's probably not going to end up being a make or break. Maybe it should be UUID, and that's just where we get to. And in fact, maybe that will force me to just explore that a little bit more, and then we can apply the same logic to other sensible things. Although I think teams have already been done with a standard ID in Jetstream world, and I don't know if we can change that really after the fact. I mean, we can change it, but So we've got users already, we've got teams already. It's going to be the same, isn't it? The blueprint column. And it is just a big increments. UUID? ULIDs. Eyelids, ULIDs. So yeah, this is like Laravel ULID world stuff, isn't it? Let's go to the actual docs. ULID, UUID. Well, yeah, I didn't really need that. ULID equivalent, UUID equivalent. ULID in MySQL. What's a ULID? Okay, this is interesting. MySQL 8, we introduced new features. Hence the support of working with UUIDs. This is why it's all becoming a bit better. UUIDs are a good alternative to auto-increment primary key. Keys are unique across tables, databases, and servers. I think you're right. Richard. I think we should possibly do this. Harder to guess, can be generated offline. Yep. Simplifies replication. Increased storage. What do they mean more difficult to debug? UUID to bin, bin to UUID. These functions will be used to convert the human readable format to compact format and back. That means compressing 32 characters, 36 with separators, to the 16-bit format back to human read. This is how you would normally use them. Blah, blah, blah. You can observe. Okay. I don't know. Basically, there's nothing here that's saying there's anything really special happening in MySQL 8 about UUID support. They've just added a couple of functions, which means that it's a little bit easier to use them. Store them in an appropriate format in the database, which takes up less space. Is that right? What about ULIDs? Three-year-old question. Yuck. That's gross. Well, let's do ULID in Laravel for a second. These are the kind of things that just take up loads of time. Let's see what this person had to say. Because we're going on a bit of a tangent, which I don't mind because I haven't looked into this stuff very much. The latest edition, models with UUID, ULID. Yes, it is a rabbit hole. I don't really want to know too much. The ULID spec appeared as a way to fix the problem of length and sorting. It does by putting millisecond precise timestamp in 48 bits first and 72 bits of random bytes afterwards. Okay, so that's kind of like UUID 5 or something? Fine, so UUID 7, if you're able to generate a UUID 7. So you'd have to, I guess what we want to know then is like, what does the UUID column, what does the model support? let's just search for it. Has UUID trait. There we go. So there's the has UUID. So let's try and open that. Has UUIDs. Unique ID. Ordered UUID. Lovely. Yes. Okay, so sidetrack, coming back. This is a nice thing to potentially explore. My gut says you could introduce this later and it would be okay. Because although you'd have maybe URLs tied to some of these IDs, maybe you'd want to, maybe we'll bump into it and we'll go, actually we should change these to UUIDs. Yes, definitely, let's change these to UUIDs, and we do it then, and it's still pre-launch or whatever. So I'm going to jump away from that. So I'm going to stick with the ID for now, and we'll do UUID later, maybe. But yeah, that was a really good little bit of whoosh, because I didn't know enough about that. Yeah. Okay, so right, we've got the key bits of information we want to track there, and then we've got our payment. Now, do we have an example of one of those? Do we have Postman? This is going to be on the wrong thing, probably. Let's go. When we create a payment, we get that stuff. Right, so we need to capture some of this as well. So we want to be able to reliably point people at these things. And we get some detail as well from that endpoint. And I don't think I ever got this endpoint to work. And it still doesn't. No, so I need to chase them up on that one. Okay, so I want to have a record of this information. If I got that ID and I want to keep both of those around for a second because this one looks different and it could be interesting to compare. Oh, come on. Serious? Cannot return null for non-nullable. Ew. That's really interesting. I don't know what that means. It works with that one, but it doesn't work with this one. This is a bug on their side, for sure. Cannot return null for non-nullable type string. Because all of the strings on my end are nullable. So, I think that means, I don't know what I think that means. I'm not going to debug their issue. What I know from this one is that the payment info comes back with the ID, the amount, the note, the stuff that we sent when we create the payment. So we can send a note though it doesn't come back here. Oh God, hate GraphQL. Where's Ryan? Let's talk about GraphQL. So in theory, I guess, if I've created a payment, then I should be able to get the payment info back, and it includes the URL that I might want to send the user to, which has got some stuff in it which feels stateful, which is strange. That doesn't feel right to me. I just want this one. I don't know what that's going to do. Why would you include the status? What difference does that make to this screen? Nothing. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, well, anyway. And then the actual wording of the status is different to that, but so I'd probably want to capture the status, the URL. It doesn't have a payer yet, but I guess at some point on a completed one it would. So maybe we can have a look at one of those. I don't know if it's got payment IDs. Trilo. Let's look at, I've got a live one. So, and I know that I made some payments through that because that's what we did last time. I do remember that much. And I think it was some reasonable amount. Okay, yeah. Trilo live test, Flipstorm. What? Oh, I don't know. But can't find any more detail about that. Can't find like the ID here. This is also why it needs to be like a better product, because this is rubbish. It doesn't have anything in here. So I actually can't really discover. No, that's the wrong option. Yeah, I can't really figure out what it's gonna let me. Is that the payment ID, do you reckon? Ah, maybe this isn't the right merchant ID. Yes, that's why it came back with an error, because the merchant ID is different. So I need to just stop being an idiot. That one, this one. Got to get those two together correct. Don't want to. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't put the merchant ID somewhere associated with that API token. Oh no, I can't, because this is from the perspective of being the marketplace. Yes, there we go. Right, so this is what I wanted to do. I've just created that payment, and then I can get the payment info. So that error message isn't particularly helpful, that null string blah. But it just means that the merchant ID doesn't match up with the payment ID. Fine. So I send those oh, I don't even send the payment ID. So I need the payment ID as well. So I want to capture the payment ID that they've created, which I get in this response. And the amount that I've sent, or that I want to send, I maybe want to capture the note that I've sent. I can tie it to the merchant. And then I want the URL and the status. The status is going to come in later on. So let's get that down on our board. They call it a payment. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like transaction, but because from our perspective, it's not a payment strictly. This doesn't record funds having transferred, this records a potential transaction. This is where naming things is so flipping difficult. But what I'm going to do, so here we know that I'm going to leave transaction ID, and this is where I think the UUID debate gets interesting as well. The Trilo ID is going to be a UUID. And it can get a bit confusing when you've got multiple UUIDs. So which one you're dealing with in your relationships. This is where I think, so the storage issue is not just where you store the original UUID, it's also where you reference that ID from other places. And this is why I think having a UUID by the side is actually nicer if all you're really concerned about is the public-facing aspect of an ID, an auto-incrementing integer ID, because you can have your public-facing UUID, but the UUID isn't used in the relationships anywhere. So all of your tables still use a really small integer reference or big integer or whatever. And that ends up being much, much better long-term for data storage. Like when you just say, well, I've got a UUID on this column, most people will turn around and say that's fine because it's just a few more bytes per row. But it's when it becomes I've got 20 tables and they've all got 300 million records in them. Now you're talking gigabytes more data. So yeah, it's a tricky one for sure. I don't know. I think I probably won't go for UUIDs as the main thing on that basis. Anyway, that's getting sidetracked by the thing that we were sidetracked by again. So I don't know if that ID is the payment ID. I don't know if the merchant account that I'm dealing with here is the same one, but I'm going to try something silly. No, it's not. So it's just a different ID altogether. Ignore that. So we want amount. The Trilo ID, this potentially could be nullable because we don't get that until we get back from Trilo, right? The amount, we should know that. I've got the hiccups, that's really annoying. A note or reference, I think that's really what that's for. So like a payment reference, that would be useful later on to tie things together. I don't know what data this could actually conceivably accept. I guess potentially we could throw some JSON in there and just see what happens. Ref. Some ref 1, 2, 3, and then we could have our own idea of a note. See what this does. Hi. It worked. Let's see what they say to that. Okay, that's not what I wanted you to do. It happily brings it back to us. So I don't know how much we could store in that note, but this could be like a JSON field. Not sure how big. Yes, so then we also, obvious connections that I'm missing here. Merchant ID, I need to know who that is. Customer ID, so it's like from and to, from customer ID to merchant ID. This amount with this detail. to get a little bit better alignment with multiple line items. Multi-line items. What else? Status, URL. Don't think I really need payer. I don't know what payer is going to be. I need to see one of those completed transactions to know what the payer is. I don't know. So, payment URL. Status. Now, I'm just being simple with that. I don't think we'll use the Trilo status to define the status in our system, but I think it will inform the status in our system. So when I go and get the order details here, or the payment info as they call it, whatever this, I don't want to be dependent on the thing that they provide here. I mean, the fact that this looks like just on its own a standard English wording is a bit concerning. I think possibly under the hood they've got this concept, awaiting accept, for example. I still wouldn't use that if that's what they brought back to us, but my concern is that this is going to change in different contexts. So I'm probably going to end up looking at this one, and that's the one that I would prefer they send back. But even then, I'm not going to store their version of this thing. I'm going to go, when I see they've said awaiting accept as the status, that is related to, and we might call it the same. We might say awaiting accept, although I don't really know what that means. We could just call it pending on our side. So we'll have like an enum or something that encapsulates those different status types. Yeah. Anyway, do you know, it's been longer than I thought it's been. We're at an hour and 20 minutes. So, should we carry on? Don't know. I know what I do know at the moment is that I need a break because I need to go to the little boy's room, and that means I'm going to have to stop. But I'm going to switch to a commercial break. There aren't really any commercials. If you want to carry on, let me know in the comments. If not, and you decide to leave, that's fine. I will wrap things up anyway after that. So either we carry on because you say you want to carry on, or you don't and I won't. I'm going to go to this break so I can go and, you know. Sorry, that took longer than I thought. Got distracted, but I'm here. So I don't know if anybody's still here, actually. It looks like I've got one person. I'm guessing that's not Richard though, because it feels like he's probably gone. Well, I am going to take a... What's the right word? I'm going to make an executive decision. I think we should call it a day. I think whatever it's been now, too long. We should end it for the time being. So I'm just going to wrap up basically. I think if we just go through quickly what we've explored, I managed to clean things up, get back to where we were. And then we've spent a little bit of time thinking about like what's the good application for this technology, and then start to explore what the data model should look like. And it's been on a little bit slow going because we spent a bit more time looking into some other areas, like whether or not to use UUIDs for primary keys and that kind of thing, which is worthy discussion. But yeah, so we've managed to get most of the kind of core models down, so what they need to be. I think there's some changes that we need to make, and there's some additions that we need to make. And I think next week what we'll do is we'll dive into just those new ones and go from there. And that will be it. So yeah, I think that's it. I think we should stop. So I'm going to say thank you for watching, and thanks for engaging in the chat, and tell your friends, like the video, subscribe, point at wherever the things are. I hope that this is enjoyable, and if it's not, you can tell me what you think would be more enjoyable, and I'll try and do that instead. I guess the goal for me with this is like, it's good just to have people forcing me to focus on one thing at a time. So thanks for that. This is helpful. And yeah, I mean, it would be nice to see a few more people come and join the discussion, follow along with what we're doing. I mean, I know what I'm building at the moment is maybe not super exciting, so certainly not necessarily up everybody's tree. But if there's something that you'd like to see me work on instead, or you want to work on something with me, let me know. I'm happy to do that on stream. Yeah, it would be cool. So I'm gonna say goodbye. I'm gonna wish you a good weekend and all of that, and I hope that you have a lovely week ahead, and I'll catch you next week, hopefully, for more of this super exciting Laravel application development, which we will hopefully touch some code next week. That's it. Bye for now. Can I change to the right thing in time after saying goodbye? The answer is no. But